Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Nick Thompson. You may know me from Netflix Love is Blind, but on this podcast, we sit down with guests from all walks of life to hear their story, remove stigmas, and uncover what makes them tick. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Conversations with Nick Thompson. I'm your host, Nick Thompson. Today, our guest is a Chicago local. His name's Kit Cabello. He founded the Hard Lens Media News Network, which is a online independent journalism network that covers local politics, but also national politics. I discovered Hard Lens Media probably around 2018, 2019. This was part of my media journey, right? Where do I get my news? How do I think about the coverage of the topics that matter to me? What's happening in Chicago? What's happening on the federal level? What's happening at our House and Senate? And what's happening day to day in politics? If you know me, or you follow me on social media, or you even know me from my experience on reality TV, I even had a line in there where I was talking about capitalism. The reality is I talk about capitalism, I talk about politics, I talk about the news and the media a lot. I consume a lot of news from various sources so that I can form an opinion and try to dive through the noise and the propaganda to see what's actually going on. In my journey, I discovered Hard Lens Media, which became one of the outlets that I get both local coverage, commentary, coverage of the news on a larger scale, on a global scale in some cases, because I truly believe that we have a news and media system in this country, but really globally. I think a lot of people would agree that they experience this in other countries that have press freedoms or, mainstream press. And first, I want to start out, for those of you who don't know what I mean by mainstream press, I'm talking about your CNNs, your MSNBCs, your Fox News, your New York Times, your Washington Post, your Chicago Tribune, all of these outlets that are for-profit businesses that are taking ad revenue from major corporations and then not necessarily accurately reporting on what is going on in the world. So if you've seen me on outlets like Breaking Points before, or you've seen some of the commentary I've shared on my social media, I truly believe that our media is not accurately representing what's going on in our country and in the world. And I think that goes down to a local level as well. In fact, there was a moment that I'm going to share here where in 2015, I felt like not only did the media not get me, that the politicians didn't get me, that no one was really speaking to me and what the needs that I felt I had as an individual and the needs that I see, around my city and I see from family and friends. I discovered independent media on YouTube, and I discovered independent journalists through various different outlets that were no longer working at the mainstream media that I described earlier. They were starting their own channels. They were starting their own print publications online. And that's the beauty of the internet, right? Is it gives us the ability to communicate a message outside of the mainstream press. Because if you think about the way this works, if you have a news show or a newspaper or a publication that's run by a for-profit company, that company is being funded and paid for by advertisers. So when the advertisers are the reason that these news organizations and media outlets are able to stay in business, they are not going to report against these large corporations or against these politicians. Speaking of politicians, the way it works with mainstream media and politicians is if they want access, which is called access journalism, if they want access to a politician, they have to oftentimes pre-approve the questions. The politician will give them topics that are off limits. And it's more of a propaganda arm to talk about what the politician wants to talk about and not necessarily hold their feet to the fire, ask them hard questions, criticize anything that they've maybe misstepped on or a bad vote or even cover these corporations and the way that they maybe treat their workers, or maybe the way that they are producing their goods overseas, or the amount of jobs that have been lost in America because we've shipped them over to Asia, or we've shipped them down south to Mexico or somewhere else. This has created like an environment that has consolidated media down to 6 companies. Mainstream media as a whole is all controlled down to your local news stations, all controlled by 6 companies. And all of these 6 companies are having little outlets and little print pieces or little online news outlets that are all funneling up through 6 companies. What that does for me is make me question the news that I'm getting from these organizations, and also made me realize that it's very disconnected from what I'm experiencing in my everyday life, or what I'm seeing out here in Chicago, or where I'm seeing out in LA when I traveled and I went to see Skid Row. Independent media, to me, is a outlet to not necessarily give all of your attention to, but to become another resource to get a more unbiased approach, even if it's commentary. Hearing commentary from the right, the left, the in-between, and anyone really on the spectrum is very valuable for me, not just to help form my opinion, but to get the perspectives of other people's experience and understand that my experience isn't going to be the same as everyone else's experience. And I feel like if we listen to everyone and we get these sort of unbought, uninfluenced opinions, we can actually start to communicate with one another and understand the why behind it. What this means to me is giving a voice not only to independent media, because I think it's something that, I know more people my age, the millennials are giving up on CNN. They're giving up on the network news. They're giving up on, we're not reading newspapers. And we're getting it more from local sources. We're getting it more from YouTube, from podcasts. So the advertising for independent networks is typically more of a subscription model or a Patreon crowdfunded model. In some cases, it's just subscribers directly through their website. In other cases, there's monetization that comes just from being on YouTube. And by that, I don't mean that these outlets are taking advertising dollars, because that would make them become just like the mainstream media. But instead, YouTube or Spotify or whatever platform they're on, they have basically standardized ads that they'll put on these podcasts or on the YouTube channels that the creator doesn't have any control or say over, but then can monetize on it based on how well the content does and how many times those ads are viewed. Independent media to me is the future to solving the problem we're seeing and experiencing with having a media that is owned by giant corporations trying to turn out a profit. I believe that is propagandizing the general public who doesn't, and I don't expect people to. I take a lot of pride and a lot of excitement because it's a hobby. I like listening to politics. I like talking about politics. I like talking about the news because I feel like if we can talk about it more, just like everything on this show, we can destigmatize it. So if we have more independent media, if we have more voices, conflicting voices too, I think independent media is the solution to us actually having dissenting voices, a variety of voices that we can see everyone's nuanced and everybody's having their own perspective in their own conversation. Where otherwise, if you just listen to the mainstream media and consume mainstream media, you're really just getting 6 media companies deciding talking points and headlines that you get, which are actually coming from the even larger corporations that are feeding them and funding them through their ad revenue. So ultimately, I think independent media is the way that we stop this divide in this country. I consume a lot of it myself, and I see that this is a big solution to the problem that we have within our system of government, but also someone to hold these politicians accountable. Because if you go on CNN or you watch Fox News or you watch even interviews like 60 Minutes with politicians, they're very rarely hit with questions that will resonate to the common American. And I feel like with independent media, that's how we can hold them accountable, hold the news accountable as well, and we can get actual perspective that's nuanced, which we all have nuanced opinions, and we all have nuanced feelings on not just politics, but everything. So we can get that perspective coverage so we can all consume less biased media and get it in a way that, first of all, makes sense to the way we want to consume it, but also gives us these different people's way of thinking so that I can understand why someone thinks the way they think, as opposed to being told that they're a horrible person by watching the news, or that they're deplorable by a politician, which is really just going to exacerbate the culture war and continue us on this path of divide. I'm not saying I think everybody's great. I'm not saying that I think everybody's opinion is correct. I do not support hate speech. However, I am an advocate for press freedom and freedom of speech. And I think we have a lot of laws in place to stop slander, to stop libel, to stop defamation, to stop doxing. And we've seen some of those instances work out in court recently, which is good. Ultimately, I believe that we need to protect free speech. I believe independent media is a very important tool to protect free speech, but I also feel it's a very important tool for us as a country to stop the divide, listen to one another, and get critical reporting on what's going on in Washington, critical reporting of how our news is delivered and consumed by us. Bringing on Kit today was a exciting guest for me because I've been listening to Hard Lens Media for a number of years. I think they have a great perspective. I love the coverage of Chicago. I love the national coverage as well. I wanted to have Kit on to talk about independent media, the mainstream media, politicians, holding them accountable, freedom of speech, and some of the challenges and wins that he's had since launching Hard Lens Media in 2017. So without further ado, I hope that you get some perspective on this, and you'll learn a little bit about what it takes to start a media company. We'll hear about Kit's journey and how he actually did 2 tours in Iraq as a Marine. We'll talk a lot about Chicago, from food, politics, why we love this city, and some of the stuff that's going on here. I'm looking forward to this interview, and I hope that you all enjoy it and you learn something new. Our guest today is Kit Cabello. He's the co-founder, CEO, and host of Hard Lens Media, which is a Chicago-based independent media network. He's also a veteran, having served 2 tours in Operation Iraqi Freedom, and a connoisseur of rye whiskey. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on, Kit.
Thank you so much. Definitely love myself a glass of Templeton rye. However, Japanese whiskey has earned a place in my heart. So that's I need to update that on the website. But I'll talk more about Japanese whiskey maybe a little bit later on.
Actually, why don't we just start with tell me what do you like? Which whiskeys do you like? What are your favorite? It's a good place to start.
Okay, well, there's definitely so there's a place called in Chicago, Kobini and Kampai, and they're awesome. They're really great. I think they opened their doors in 2020, and during the pandemic of all things. And I really wish them all the best because again, it's a great store. The owners are great. And they host a lot of great wine tasting events, and they got Japanese whiskey there. And so, but people are probably asking, well, wait, kid, if you like Templeton rye so much, right, why is it now that you're gravitating towards Japanese whiskey? Well, I acquired the taste when I left on Christmas Day of 2019, of all days, to leave for like a 5-week trip in Japan. I was visiting my family members who were living there, and I was enjoying Japan just the month before the whole world went crazy with the 2020 pandemic. So my stepfather was able to share with me some of his whiskey that he got there, and I was like, okay, I got to take not 1 but 2 of these bottles home. And then I hear about Kobani and Kampai. I hope I'm saying its name right. They're in Chicago. Let me get their name correct, because the last thing I want is that's a little thing for me. If I get something wrong, I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
It's a sign of a good reporter. All right.
Kobini, Konbini, and Kampai. Konbini and Kampai, Kanpai. And they're at 1433 West Belmont Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. And they're a great spot. They're a really great spot, and it's I know right now I like the Mount Fuji brand, and then there's Suntory, and one bottle that I got from Costco, Yamoto. It's sort of like it's a huge square glass bottle, but there's there's that samurai a samurai armor on it, and I have it, and it came in that nice oak box. So there you go. It's nice. Japan's close to my heart because that was my second visit to Japan. 1998, I visited my cousins there, and my family's had like a lot of connections in Japan. My Uncle Bernie, who passed away in 2020, he served in the Second World War, and he was part of the United States Army Air Force. So he was there for 6 years with the occupation forces. And then obviously my cousins lived there. And my grandpa also visited Japan.
Oh, wow.
And then yours truly, not once but twice. Hopefully I can go back there again.
That's awesome. I've never been to Japan. I definitely want to go. It seems like like a culture shock.
It is. And I would say my two trips there, I was more or less spoiled. I was taken care of by my family. It is a little pricey, but Japan is a place I would recommend everyone to visit. I was in Tokyo, Kyoto, and Hiroshima my second time. First time I was in Yokohama, but those three cities really stood out. I hope to see Osaka because since you and I are Chicagoans, something a lot of Chicagoans don't know, or a lot of people who live in America who live in major metropolitan cities don't know, is that each of these cities has a thing called sister cities. Now, what are sister cities? Well, there are other cities that are in friendly relations all across the world with said city. So Boston has sister cities, so does Chicago. And Chicago's sister cities are Milan, for example, Toronto, Osaka, Japan. So I want to see Osaka because that's one of our sister cities. And there's a whole other list there too. Little tidbit fact though, and this is probably going to shock a lot of people. Moscow and Kiev are also Chicago's sister cities too.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I actually only knew about Toronto. I didn't know that we had more than one.
Oh yeah, we have a lot. There's one in Britain, one in Italy, Spain, Germany, South Korea. Yeah, exactly. All over.
Well, that's a little fun fact that we can take out of here. That's awesome. That's very cool. So another fun question, small talk question for you. Sure. What was your favorite TV show as a child?
Favorite TV show as a child. If we're going to be going all the way back, something close to my heart, it was the Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters. And see, the thing is, looking back at that cartoon series and then looking back at the original film, which was like lightning captured in a bottle, you realize that film was not meant for kids.
Oh, no. Not at all.
Like some of that stuff flew over my head as a little kid. Like, oh, yeah, Ghostbusters. They're fighting all the ghosts and the ghouls. But then as an adult, you're like, look at everything. And then Peter Venkman, obviously having a very controversial, illegal item on him, was like, oh, wow, that guy's a real scumbag. That was Bill Murray's character.
I remember when I would watch that as a kid and the things like my dad would laugh at, and I just didn't understand why. And now I know.
Yeah, So a lot of films, you look back now as a kid, you're like, oh, that's funny, and then as an adult, like, oh, my parents let me watch this.
I know,
come
right?
On. So it's Ghostbusters as a kid. As a kid, I love that show.
Yeah, I remember watching that every Saturday. I mean, I had that. There was another. I was really into. What the heck was that show called? It was kind of creepy. It was like a bunch of adults dressed up in animal costumes. Zoobilee Zoo. Did you ever watch that?
I remember that. Yes, I remember that. Zoobilee Zoo. Yes.
Oh my God, I used to love that show. So weird.
It's been
about it.
It's been so long now. If I were to watch it as an adult, I'd probably get creeped out by it. As a kid, you don't really question the stuff that you see on TV. You trust the magic box, and obviously your parents are doing something else. But then here you are watching this show, and then many years later you watch it like, oh, this is not right.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to watch it anymore as an adult. So
Okay.
what,
Okay.
I got another good one for you here. What'd you want to be when you were growing up?
All right. Obviously, I'm a journalist right now, a reporter, working on a lot of content creation on YouTube, working on various projects at 99 Perspectives too. But and then if you rewind back the clocks too, you realize I served 4 years in the Marine Corps. So people are probably wondering, you always wanted to serve in the military? Did you always want to do something with content creation? And the answer is no. What I really wanted to do as a kid, what I really wanted to be as was a paleontologist. I wanted to study dinosaur bones. And I really fell in love with the whole concept of these giant animals, these titans that used to roam the earth millions and millions of years ago. And I actually was on 3 dinosaur expeditions, 2 to Montana and 1 to South Dakota. And I had a chance to work with some of the best minds. I was still a kid, so obviously I wasn't Mr. Know-It-All, but right. a little ego boost for myself. In 1997, I believe maybe 98, there was a recent find in Africa, which is like the last frontier to find new dinosaur species or either that prehistoric animals. And I met the members who were part of that expedition, Gabrielle Leon, for example. And she I was doing a science project about the various different speeds of different dinosaur species. And there were Afrovinator, which is a theropod from Africa, Deltadromeus, another theropod from Africa, North Africa to be more precise, Jobaria, which was a sauropod dinosaur. See, I'm nerding out here with prehistoric animals. And I think there was another species. Oh, yeah, Carcharodontosaurus, which was a large T-Rex-like dinosaur, but not Tyrannosaurid species. It was a different species, but it was like the size of a T-Rex. And there was one other specimen in there that was covered in full-on plaster. And they asked me a question like, well, what do you think this is? Like, no one usually gets it. And this thing was like a really large, elongated, plaster, and it was wide. So I was wondering, oh, this is a skull. I bet this is a crocodile skull. And I got it. It was
oh my gosh!
It was Sarcosuchus, which is a giant prehistoric crocodile that fed on dinosaurs. And this thing was about maybe 40 feet long. So that's something
gigantic. Right there. That's cool. Good for you.
Oh yeah, it was a fun time. I always wanted to be a paleontologist, just that never came through. College, after I graduated from high school, it was just not feasible, and hence that's where the Marine Corps comes in.
Okay, all right, and we'll talk about that too, I'm sure. But last small talk question for you here. Deep dish pizza. You said on your Instagram you long live deep dish. So, 1, what's your favorite deep dish pizza in Chicago? And 2, let's bang on New York pizza a little bit after that.
Okay. Lou Malinali makes some good deep dish pizza. Then there's Pequod's. Geno's, they're good. See, the thing is, it's hard to really pinpoint the best deep dish pizza because each if it's from Chicago, then it's authentic. So I know it's a cop-out question, like, oh, well, then you're not naming the best spot, because each spot is wonderful. Each spot has a great service and contributes to Chicago culture. But if it's from Chicago, made by Chicagoans, deep dish pizza is the best. But see, it's really a decadent meal, because deep dish pizza is something that you have to enjoy with a lot of people. It's not something that you order or have like at your house all the time, because you're gonna get bloated and you're gonna have to go to the gym. So what people forget though is that Chicago has 3 other different types of pizza. We got frying pan pizza, tavern style, and I believe the other one's pot pie.
Yes,
I believe so.
Yeah, yeah. It's like stuffed, right? That's what you mean, the stuffed.
Yeah, something like that. I think.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna get called out by pizza enthusiasts now.
Yeah, we got to be careful here. We'll get canceled over pizza in our own city.
So the thing is, like, so let's brag on New York style pizza. See, the thing is, all it is just flat. It's greasy. It's like cheese with tomato sauce and a little cracker on top that claims to be a crust, right?
I always describe it as cardboard ketchup cheese.
That is a more correct. That is a more of a correct description of New York style pizza. So, and the thing is, there was a recent election on Twitter. I know Twitter's a cesspool right now, but there was an election, and Chicago style pizza won. There we go, fair and square. And so,
not surprised. We'll take it. The people have spoken.
The people have spoken. And the thing is, when you talk about pizza here in America, usually people talk about New York style, but as soon as they have Chicago style, they love it better. We're the second city, but we're always first.
I totally agree. Long live Chicago. We can call the episode there. We've made our point.
There we go. All right, we're wrapping up. Bye, folks.
All right, so why don't we get into this? Kit, tell us a little bit about you, where you grew up. I know you grew up in Chicago. Where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like? And then, walk us through up until how you started Hardlands Media.
Oh, geez, there's so much to talk about with that. Well, my roots go deep here in Chicago. My family's been living here since the 1900s, and in my neighborhood specifically, we've been living here since 1948, I believe. I'm a South Sider through and through, White Sox
What's
fan.
Your neighborhood?
It's over there by McKinley Park.
Oh, cool.
Very
cool.
So it's over here. It's just a simple Chicago neighborhood, and that's it. And what I really have to say in regards to my childhood is, my mother and my grandfather raised me. My father passed away before I was born. I was the second son. And, for the most part, I was always taught to be respectful, obviously treat school with importance, and, stay dedicated. As a kid, let's face it, I watched all the same Saturday morning cartoons that all other millennials watch: Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think I really started to get more breaking away from the cartoons and comics when I was first introduced to dinosaurs. And I think it was my mom who brought me some dinosaur books. And my grandpa bought me my very first dinosaur toy, and I was like, "What are these things?" So these aren't Ninja Turtles. These aren't Ghostbusters. These aren't action figures. This isn't a GI Joe.
And you're not seeing them at the zoo.
No, you're not seeing them at the zoo, which is a total sellout. So I mean, come on, where are these guys at? I wanted to learn more about them, so I started getting involved in a little bit more of the sciences, and I through my own hard work and due diligence through science fairs and science fair projects, I was able to eventually meet one of the leading paleontological authorities here in Chicago, Dr. Paul Sereno, and his wife, Gabrielle Leon. And through that, I was part of a inner city group called Junior Paleontologists. And I was able to go on 2 dinosaur expeditions to Montana as in my elementary and first year in high school. And then my 3rd dinosaur expedition, I think my junior year of high school. And that was in South Dakota. Yeah. So those
Very cool. So then you graduate high school and you decide to go into the Marine Corps.
So, okay, let me explain what happened here. So I was trying to get a lot of scholarships at the time, and they all fell through. And look, let's face it, it's either get a job, go to college, do something important, make something of yourself. And my mother and my grandfather played an important role in making sure, like, hey, you have to do something with yourself. You just can't be sitting on the couch. That's not the dream. Nobody ever wants that. I mean, people say they like that, but in all reality, if you're stuck on the couch, you're not doing anything, right? So I was really weighing out my options because I did get accepted to Columbia College. That was in my top 10 colleges that I wanted to go to. However, a sense of dread fell over me when I was realizing, I have to take out loans. Mm-hmm. I have to take out money for this. This is starting to get a little pricey. What kind of job can I make to pay off the loans? I was thinking in the long term, like, oh my God, I could be in some serious debt. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that there's a lot of people out there. This is like, I think I graduated in 2003. So
we're the
I
same
get it.
age. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I get it. Like, hey, everyone goes through it, and I could go on my full opinion of what I think about the education system here in America, because it's an absolute failure, and
Fraud.
it screwed us over. It screwed a lot of people over, good people over, and I realized I do want to go to college, but it has to be on my own terms. So I was looking around, and I saw a pamphlet on the military, and I started looking at them in regards to, okay, what is this about? And in there, I saw, well, they'll pay for your college. And I also found out that Illinois has a special benefit, too, called the Illinois State Veterans Grant. So I had not one but two things that could potentially help me out. The only thing is, obviously you're serving in the military, which branch of service you want to do. And, of course, when you sign the dotted line, guess what? You're going to war, because it's 2003. 9/11 happened. War and terror is going on. We're in Iraq. But I wanted to make this very difficult choice. And so I was looking at all the branches of service, and I choose the one branch that's the craziest, the toughest, the most wild of them all, and that's the Marine Corps. And the thing is, for some reason, there's a couple reasons why. One, I wanted to see the adventure. Two, the challenge, if I could do it. Three, my father served in the Marine Corps. And my grandpa's cousin served in the Pacific Campaign. And, I have some family connections there, because I had a couple other family members that served in different other branches of the military. And I knew what I was getting myself into. And I felt like, okay, I'm going to do this. And it's not high school. It's not paleontology. It's nothing you're familiar with. It's not some retail job, and it sure as hell ain't college. But if you could do this and make it through it, there's something at the end of the road. So when I told my family I was going to join the military, they were like, "No, you can't. You're the last person that's going to do this. You're the bookworm. But my mom,
the
she
scientist.
But my mom, she believed in me. She believed me, and she actually helped me out. Going to the gym more, and was very encouraging. She helped build me up, and she was a strong source of support. She believed I could do it.
That's good to hear.
So
how long did you train for before you went in? Sorry, you can shut out.
Because I wanted to make sure I was physically fit before I went to a recruiter. So I think it took me about 8 months or so, I believe, 6 months. Because I really wanted to be on point. I really wanted to be strong. So I'm trying to remember. So I'm kind of getting senile now. So there you go.
That's okay.
And so after that, meeting my recruiter, and I'm proud to say that when I did go, my recruiter did tell my family that I was the one guy in his entire group that he was going to, obviously they have to meet a quota, that never got injured, that never, because when you're with the recruiter is also training you too. And he said that you guys, specifically said to my mom, like, hey, you really trained him good. He's the only one in my group that never got injured. He always knew what he was doing. So I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm on point. So Marine Corps is not an easy walk in the park.
No, it's not.
I was so there's two different locations. There's Parris Island in South Carolina. Oh, I'm getting senile now. Okay. None of my fellow Marines, kicked me upside
in
the
the
head.
Carolinas.
Yeah, it's in the Carolinas. And then there's what I think is the worst one psychologically. It messes with your mind, and that is MCRD San Diego. Now, the reason why I say it's crazier and messes with your brain more is because you're smack dabbing in the airport, and here you are being yelled by your drill instructors, right? And over your head is flying Air Tahiti, Air Hawaii, Air anything, United Airlines, all these airplanes. You think, oh, for the love of God, I wish I was on that airplane right now, away from this place. Yes. Oh, God.
Wow.
Every time, because sometimes, when you're going through the training, you see that airplane, and I for some reason I always can imagine those pilots laughing. Oh, I bet those recruits wish they were on this plane. so I mean, hey, to those pilots who ever made those jokes, yeah, you're spot on, buddy. We're all thinking the same thing. So let's see. So obviously 3 months. You're in boot camp. You're given like 2 weeks of leave. And then you go to the School of Infantry, which is a more I'm going to be generous with these words. A more relaxed version of boot camp.
Okay.
It's just where you go to your MOS, and that's your military operations specialty.
Okay.
And my job was infantry. 0300. Oh, hold on, excuse me. Sneezing on air. I try to avoid that.
I've been coughing on air, so don't worry about it.
That is the bane of every person on social media. Try not to sneeze on air. Don't cough on air, and don't fart on air. There you go.
Oh my gosh, yeah, basics.
So, after School of Infantry, I was stationed in North Carolina, and I was there for 4 years. I did 2 tours in Iraq. First tour was in Baghdad in the Green Zone. And you know how Fox News likes to say, oh, millennials live in basements? Well, I was living in Saddam Hussein's basement before it was cool. So there we go. It was the Green Zone is like SeaWorld, I would describe it.
Okay.
All the top tier cards were there. And and the second tour was in this place called Ashraf, which is a story unto itself. But I am proud to say that in my 4 years of military service and in my 2 tours in Iraq, everyone came home alive and well and in one piece.
That's quite an accomplishment for that time.
Well, everyone knew what they were doing. We had a great leadership from top to bottom, and everyone looked out for each other. And, I played a very, 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 very small part. But, those guys, screw winning the lottery.
Yeah.
Everyone came home. That's the biggest thing ever. I don't care about money. I don't care about no lottery ticket. That's the biggest win I think no one would ever think about. But when you hear about all the horrific things that have happened to other service members who have given everything.
You don't hear these stories.
You don't. And of a unit that served not once but twice over there, It is something. It has weighed with me a lot, and I've always said, if someone asks me, well, hey, if I served in the military, will my experience be the same as yours? And I have to say, I don't think so. You might not be as lucky as I was, where you don't have to worry about your brother. You don't have to live with that concept in your mind that your brother doesn't come home. And there are people who I do know. There's some people who did stay in longer than I did, who did pass away by doing a 3rd tour or 4th tour overseas, and it stays with you. And at least I could say for my 4 years, we all made it, and I think that's the biggest win there ever is. So there you go.
That's a great win, and thank you and your entire team for your service, obviously. And
I did nothing. I did nothing. I really didn't do anything. I didn't do anything.
You all did. You were a team.
But I could say this. On top of Saddam Hussein's palace, I predicted that the White Sox were going to win the World Series. And they did. But I missed it. I missed it.
You missed it.
No. I was so adamant about watching the game. But, I was at least able to know that I was on point. But, whatever.
That's a great prediction. Well, my best friend actually predicted that year they would win too, and he also predicted this past year that they would win. So,
well,
that didn't happen.
You can't win them all, but
Exactly.
next year, 2023 is going to be our year. 2023 is going to be our year.
I think it's looking good. And I'm a Cubs guy, but the Sox are my second favorite team because I'm a Chicago guy, so I'm rooting for them too.
I would love for there to be the World Series Red Line Series, because New York had that when there was the New York Yankees versus the New York Mets. Do you have any idea how crazy this city would be if both teams?
I think it would burn down.
Yes, exactly. But that's the whole point. I want to see that happen. North side and South side make it to the World Series here in Chicago.
Oh my God.
That is, I mean, all in all, I mean, that is something that we're gonna run with, and I think ours would be more entertaining than what you saw in New York because it was the Mets versus the Yankees.
Yeah.
Come on, get out of here.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
There is. I want to be careful with these words. A friendly rivalry between the North and South side. Let's be friendly about it. But I would love to see that soon, very soon.
Me too. I think it would be so fun. It would be so fun. So you. Oh, go ahead. If you had something to say.
So I was going to say, like, after the Marine Corps, 2008, I get out. I go to Northeastern Illinois University, and I'm there for 5 years, 2008 to 2013. I decided to major in political science and news media and journalism because I wanted to get more involved in politics and current events. And
can I ask you, was that influenced at all by your two tours? Okay.
Yes, it was. Because I wanted to know where I was at. I wanted to know more about what was going on with politics, current events, the media landscape. And unfortunately, after 2013, it was a low point for me because I was unemployed for 10 months. And I was at rock bottom. And I then got hired because I was applying to so many different jobs. I applied to 100 different jobs. And the one place that actually responded back to one of my job applications was Costco. So I was working retail from 2014 to 2019. 2015, I get involved with Wolfpack. Which was TYT at the time. You know, which was associated with TYT. We managed to get Illinois to become the second state or third state to call for an Article 5 convention calling for a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics.
Can you explain real quick for the audience what that Article 5 is?
Well, okay, so this Article 5, it's basically, it's calling for, so there's, let me start over again. So when the Founding Fathers founded the Republic, a lot of people would say they're wise men, they're flawed men, whatever. But they did come up with a very interesting concept, and that is there was a legitimate fear from them that one day the government would become out of control or too tyrannical or abuse its powers. Not that it's happening now, of course. No, never. So what happened was they decided to come with there's two ways that could keep the government in check, and that's calling for a constitutional convention. And it could be done through the House and Senate, or it could be done through the states. And the reason why they chose that option for the states is they viewed it as the perfect reset button should the federal government get out of control, because there was still at the time when the Founding Fathers founded the Republic, the United States are a great country. After the Civil War, the United States is a great country was the word that replaced United States are. And the whole idea is each state was in its own right a sovereign nation, or was sovereign in its ability to govern itself. And so the states would come together to call for an Article 5 convention in order to put in a new amendment into the Constitution. And what we were working on for this amendment was to get money out of politics by reversing the Supreme Court decision of
Citizens United.
Citizens United. Thank you. Oh my God. Of all the things I forget, Citizens United. And so I joined with Wolfpack because I felt like, okay, I don't like the fact that billionaires and corporations or anybody can buy a politician, undermine our republic.
It's disgusting. It's literally the number one issue that we're facing.
And I was really on board with it, and we managed to get a couple of these states on board, especially with Illinois. But after we did, I really felt disappointed that they really couldn't do anything. When we were trying to come up with new ideas how to keep the team together or how to get more states on board, it was kind of being dismissed by Wolfpack, and I wanted to move on. And I also, that's where I met Daniel. To form,
at
Wolfpack. And, we were both like kind of disillusioned, like, okay, they're not having us do anything else. I guess time to move on, whatever.
And what year was that?
2016, the most craziest election year. So Daniel calls me up. So this is the first phone call I get from Daniel, and he was like, hey, I'm on a radio show. And this was at Q4 Radio at the time. Okay. And we meet up, and he's like, okay, well, let's try and do a show here. And one day at my place, I have a couple friends over, and Daniel's there too. I say, hey, let's go to the Democratic Convention in Philadelphia. And so we were there at the Wells Fargo Center, where I don't care what anyone says, saying that there was peace and love at that convention center. There wasn't. I remember seeing Bernie Sanders supporters,
I was
Green Party
go.
supporters.
I was pissed.
Yeah. I remember it clearly because we even spoke to Bernie Sanders delegates and volunteers, and they all had the same story. They were being attacked, harassed, assaulted by Clinton delegates, Clinton supporters, kicked out. There was that one incident where a whole bunch of Bernie Sanders delegates were at the front tent, and they had snipers pointed at them.
Oh my God. So what the hell?
So yeah, and so Daniel and I, after seeing that in Philly, we're like, well, we need to do something because the other networks weren't talking about it. TYT was all on board of supporting Hillary. And look, I get that Trump was a crazy orange buffoon, a horrible person, the last person to be president of the United States. But leaving the Wells Fargo Center, and I got a lot of pushback from a lot of people, I remember specifically saying this. There's a 50-50 chance that that man could win the presidency after what I saw in Philly.
And I was... Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember this is when I started to get radicalized a little bit about this because I was kind of like, I said this before we started recording. I checked out after 2012. I'm like, Obama's not doing anything that he said he's going to do. I reluctantly voted for him again. I didn't volunteer in 2012. I was kind of becoming nihilistic about it. And then my friend, I was talking, with my roommate at the time, and I'm like, I can't even watch the news. We had a fantasy football draft in August of, I think this was 2015, and we were all talking about Trump, and we were all arguing about Trump. And then my friend was like, well, you should watch TYT. And I was like, okay. So I give it a shot, and that's when I hear Jimmy Dore for the first time. I'm like, this guy is actually saying all the things that I'm feeling, and I feel like I'm alone. And I don't even want to talk about politics anymore because I just feel like I'm alone. And so Jimmy, I couldn't get enough because I'm like, oh my God, someone's speaking for me for once. And 2016, I remember I was having to watch Bernie talk to 100,000 people at the LA Coliseum on YouTube while the media was just talking about, Trump being racist. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Bernie he's galvanizing people with, by the way, the same shit Obama was saying in 2008. We hadn't gotten any of it. And it was just watching them just ignore and cheat and bully was just, it was horrendous. And so getting into independent journalism, watching even Jordan Sheridan interview people, I'm like, this guy's going to win the Midwest. And I know because my family was working class, lost manufacturing jobs.
Yep.
Over and over and over for my whole childhood, my whole life. And I'm like, the stuff Trump's saying, whether he's right or wrong, I get it. I think we should bring jobs back. It was no surprise to me that he won, and nobody wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
It's looking in the mirror, and we as a country cannot look in the mirror.
I would say, here's the thing. Trump as a political force here in America, the biggest mistake a lot of people did was underestimate him. Now, the thing is, look, Trump, he is who he is. He did not design this neoliberal system that we are in. It's these careerist politicians that have done so. The Bushes, the Kennedys, the Clintons, the Obamas. You have people like Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein. I know, but some people might get offended, oh, well, you're bringing up Democratic and Republican politicians like together. But see, the thing is, they're friends with each other. They take the same people who donate to the Democratic Party also donate to the Republican Party. People who were once Democrats were also Republicans. And the thing about Trump is that he's the parasite that survived in the system that was built by people like Biden, by, Nancy Pelosi, by Chuck Schumer, by, Mitch McConnell and the Republican establishment, Democratic establishment. All of it. So the thing is, he designed it. I mean, not he designed. He knew how to survive in a system that they designed. And the thing is, what offends a lot of vote blue, no matter who people, is that, hey, look, Trump used to be a Democrat. Trump is a reality TV show clown that was once a Democrat. And again, he said for one point in American politics, and this flew over a lot of people's head, it was during the first Republican primary debate, and the conversation of money and politics came up, and I forget which media outlet hosted it, but it came up with money and politics, and Trump said these words, and this was the one time, I think, the American people were exposed to honesty, and no one jumped on it. Trump said, I give these people money, and they do what I say, because he was a donor. So the thing is, the moderator asked, well, which one of you have taken money from Trump? And some of the Republican primary candidates raised their hand. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, what went in my mind is, holy crap, that was honest. He told the truth. And then what should be told to every single Democratic voter is, don't forget that Trump was a Democrat, and he gave money to Democrats. And there was once a United States senator named Hillary. Thank you, Hillary Clinton. Yes. So I have to wonder, did Trump give money to Hillary Clinton, and did she do what he said? And the answer is most likely yes, because Hillary Clinton was also a Goldwater girl as well, of the very right-wing Goldwater. Look him up to anyone that doubts that.
Well, she famously said it. I was a Goldwater girl. She famously says it.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, it's one big club. George Carlin was right. It's one big club, and you ain't in it. So if you vote Democrat or Republican, I'm sorry. These politicians don't like you, they don't think about you, and they don't respect you. And people like Jimmy Dore have been speaking the truth about just how corrupt our system is. And a lot of Americans really haven't come to terms with it, because the corporate media and the two-party system have done a fantastic job in brainwashing people to either vote Team Blue or Team Red. But you don't have a seat at the table. The donors have the seat at the table. The senators, the House representatives, your favorite House senator or favorite U.S. senator in Washington, D.C., be they Democrat or Republican, 90% of the time they're on the phone calling their donors, begging for more money so they could run their campaign, win office, write legislation to benefit their donors, so to go right back to that phone call, right back to the little telephone, call up the phone and beg their donors for more money for the next election cycle. That's what our politicians do. And as soon as people realize that, maybe we could break away from the two-party system. And the thing is, Trump, while he did lose in 2020, it wasn't this major win. Biden won by the skin of his teeth, and we don't have popular vote in America.
It was like 40,000 votes, right? Yeah. Wasn't it just 40, 50,000 votes when you pull them all the states that were swinging together? That's nothing. And by the way, it's looking like he's about to announce again. So it's the rematch nobody wants to see. And let me tell you, Biden's speech the other night talking about democracy, like democracy is like 3% of the people in the polls care about democracy. They want food on their table. They want lower gas prices. They want to be able to cover their basic human needs. And until we have a Democratic Party that doesn't just say it, they actually do it, we're going to keep ending up with Trump. We're going to keep ending up with worse people. It's going to get worse. And the bench for the Democrats is no longer viable, in my opinion.
What we're seeing here, okay, so obviously right now we're having this conversation. November 8th is the final day for the midterm election cycle. Now, after that day, no matter how it turns out, it's going to be the canary in the coal mine of how 2024 will play out. My thing is this, whether Republicans get their red wave, the Democrats, I don't know, somehow this will be a miracle, maintain their seats or get more majority, or it's 50-50 down the middle. Nothing will fundamentally change. But if there is a Republican victory, Trump will make his announcement. I will be surprised if he doesn't. And the way I would describe a rematch between Biden and Trump is how I described it in 2020. It's two senile old men fighting over a cold bowl of soup. Fighting for a cold bowl of soup. And that cold bowl of soup is America. And the thing is, what I hope is that Americans do wake up to identify more as independent, green, libertarian, socialist, non-party affiliate, and we need to start building movements and institutions that are not connected to Washington, D.C. Sorry to break it to you, vote blue no matter who. AOC, Bernie Sanders, Biden, Clinton, they're not going to help you. Anyone from Washington, D.C. does not have an incentive to help you. And this same thing goes to Trump supporters, too, diehard Republican voters. The Republican Party doesn't care for you. The two-party system doesn't respect you. If they respected you, they would do something about the fact that we don't have clean drinking water, or our bridges and infrastructure is falling apart, or that we have money for war, or we have money to bail out the banks in Wall Street. the average American citizen has been abandoned. And this abandonment has been going on for a long time. But the clear abandonment happened in 2020 with the lockdowns. And unfortunately, there are still a lot of Americans who have been successfully brainwashed into thinking that the media can be trusted, that the politicians can be trusted, and that their vote matters. When in all reality, we could use our votes better to fight for ballot initiatives, to start supporting and building independent movements and organizations, and building and supporting independent parties, third parties. That's what needs to be done here, and we need to support.
And it needs to come from
media.
the ground up. Yes, we need to support independent media. But I've been supporting independent media for a long time now. It is the only way I feel sane. And it's not, I like talking to people that I don't agree with. That's why part of the reason I started this show is because I want to remove stigmas around it, because to your point, Democrats don't care about you. The Republicans don't care about you. It's what branding and messaging. And I'm a VP of marketing, so I get branding and messaging. Okay. They're messaging to you to sell you a pile of shit. It's just, which pile of shit do you want? And the vote blue no matter who people, I kind of think I break it down into two folks, right? You have the people who are really, really struggling, and it will get worse for them under the Republicans. I don't know if that's true. In some ways it is, but then you're getting yourself in this vicious cycle. And then there's the vote blue no matter who people who are, it'd be great if everybody had health care, but I'm upper middle class. My life's not going to change that much either way. And guess what? I don't want to hear about Trump every day when I turn on CNN and go start cooking or whatever that is. That's the issue. So from my perspective, the people down here, they're ready for the change. They're ready for Bernie. We saw it in 2016. We saw it in 2020. Nevada, when he won that caucus, and it was on the backs of the unions and the working people. You see that they're ready for that. We got to get the middle class, that it doesn't impact either way. We got to get them to realize that the crime in your nice neighborhoods, I'm in Wicker Park, Westtown, the crime that we're all worried about as the upper middle class, the systemic issue there is people are struggling and they don't have basic human needs, and we're gentrifying the hell out of this area, and we're just condensing poor people, gangs, and crime into area, which is causing. There was a shootout near Garfield Park just the other day, and kids were killed. Yeah, it's like, what is going on? It's because fundamentally we're not giving people their basic human needs, and that's because of the two-party system.
And what we have here are, again, we're run. Okay, so I very rarely would I praise a politician, all right? Now, occasionally, sometimes there will be a lawmaker, be it Democrat or Republican, that says or does a correct thing. But then I have to remember that they're a politician and that they're always a liar, right? But I want to mention her. Tulsi Gabbard on Joe Rogan's show mentioned, Joe Rogan asked her, okay, what is Congress really like? And she said, it's like high school. And so let's talk about that mentality of our leaders that are supposed to represent us. A lot of these politicians are in their early 80s or late 80s. Some of them are going to be in their 90s. We are being governed by people who are from a different generation, who are in leadership positions that are not boomers, they're not Gen Xers, they're not millennials, they're sure as hell not Gen Z. But you have these old senile politicians who have no business in the Senate and House, or even the presidency. We're being run and ruled over by people that haven't really developed since high school. Now, they claim to be adults. They claim to be accredited. But since they've been in power for decades upon decades, have the lives of the American people gotten better? I mean, Dianne Feinstein, she's going to be 90. And there have been reports of her not knowing where she is at. And she is a United States senator. Biden himself.
She's governing us. They're governing us. They're telling us how we live our lives. Biden can't find his way off a stage without help. Like, it's crazy. And to sit here and think that somebody is that far removed from what matters to me, what matters to my friends, and what matters to my family, the fact that they haven't had to worry about health care for 50, 60, 70 years. And by the way, they'll never have to worry about it because our money gives them universal health care their entire life. Okay.
They're set. They got gold-plated health care, a six-figure salary, a lobbyist job or connections for their friends and family members, and, of course, other wonderful social benefits that a lot of Americans would like to have. But no, they're not going to give that to us. Nancy Pelosi, remember, she used to fight for Medicare for all until she got that money. Then there's, Senator Sinema, who was an activist, part of the Green Party, ran as a progressive Democrat, and now she is a corporate loving donor. Not corporate. She loves the corporate donor money. She loves it through and through. I mean, she is addicted to it like a drug, and she abandoned her entire political base. She might as well identify herself as a corporatist, not Republican or Democrat. She's a true untrue corporatist through and through.
Yeah. And let me ask this. This is something I don't think a lot of people know. Like, Nancy Pelosi's worth over $100 million. I think her and her husband are worth, who knows, after some recent stock moves that they've made over the last couple of years, but they're worth over $100 million, like $114 million or something. So let me tell you, or ask all of the audience here who's listening, do you want someone who's worth $114 million who doesn't ever have to worry about losing their job, health care, food on a table, clothing? Do you really think that they can write a law that's going to help someone who is struggling to eat or is sick and needs health care? Or I'm literally across the street from Pulaski Park, and there's a homeless couple that moved in a tent a couple weeks ago. And they'll get removed. It's happened before, but there's another gentleman down here that set up a tent outside of the dog park. Mm-hmm. This is popping up more and more. In the last couple of years, I have seen so many homeless people. There's a homeless veteran that sits outside of Target, and it's like, what is Nancy Pelosi and this Congress and this president going to do? Because I can tell you, they're never going to come take a walk around this neighborhood.
No, here's the thing that we have to remember about Nancy Pelosi, all right? She is someone who built a career of being the perfect politician and parasite. Her and her husband and other Democratic and Republican lawmakers have been doing insider trading, which is illegal, technically, right? Now, if you and I or anyone of the audience were to even do maybe a fraction of what Nancy has done, we'd be locked away behind bars for life. Yes. But the politicians have access to it. And so the thing is, I don't want to be ruled over a Democrat or Republican that is doing insider trading, because the one thing that's in their mind is money, money, and money, not you. I don't care if they put on this neoliberal mask that smiles and says, oh, yeah, I agree with your issues, X, Y, and Z. Do they follow through? If Nancy Pelosi really cared about women's reproductive rights, they would have fought hard for it to codify Roe v. Wade when the Democrats have had majorities.
They could have done it like that. As soon as the leak came out that they were going to overturn it, you have the Senate, the House, and the presidency. You can do whatever the hell you want. Notice. Whip the vote. Why isn't Joe Biden whipping the vote?
Because the thing is, it's not good. So it's not good for them. So here's the thing. Everyone, I got the emails of, oh, hey, donate to the Democratic Party because, or help us fundraise.
Unsubscribing all week.
So we could fight for Roe v. Wade. The thing is, the reason why the Democrats never codified Roe v. Wade or any of these other important social issues is because then they lose their bread and butter. It's all for fundraise fear. Fundraise fear. Now, what is fundraise fear? It is, if I don't give money to this party, then this issue is going to die and the other party's going to win it. They've had decades to do the right thing. So if you donate money to the Democratic Party, you were a sucker, because they're not going to fight it. They say they're going to do something about it after the election. You want to know what would inspire more voters to turn out? Is if you did something and say, hey, if we got Roe v. Wade codified, women's reproduction rights is protected. There's no excuse. They could have done it. They could have done it. And the thing is, by not doing it, and they say, we'll do it later, it's sort of like an abusive partner. Oh, I'm so sorry I slapped you around. I'll be better if you help me out. It's all going to be good. I'm sorry I yelled at you. I'm sorry I gave you a black eye. I'm sorry I did this. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't raise my hand to you. That's how these politicians act. Yep. And so when you give money to them, you're supporting your abuser. You're supporting and
you're an enabler.
Yeah, you're an enabler to their violence. And I refuse to vote Democrat or Republican. I will vote independent. And on election day, I will vote third party, because I feel like the party hasn't earned my vote. They don't respect me. They don't respect my fellow citizens. No. And I'm not going to vote Republican. I will do the correct thing and vote independent.
Yeah. And I will do the same. I have been, because in my view, after what happened to Bernie in 2016, and I was not voting for Hillary. I recently said that there was no way I was going to vote for Hillary. I got a lot of hate. I would imagine now I'm going to get even more hate, which is kind of scary. But now it is what it is from my perspective. And it's like, I'm not going to vote for a warmongering psychopath who puts on a mask that says I'm a progressive when the reality is no legislation that she's ever supported has actually been beneficial to my life. And in fact, the Clintons in 92, in the 90s, I should say, was very detrimental to my family's life. And we were very poor because of the decisions that they made with the trade deals like NAFTA to ship all of our jobs overseas or down to Mexico. And great, like I do believe that there's a way that we can outsource a lot of things, but not if we're not doing something to support those folks here in this country. And I wasn't going to vote for that. Like, quite frankly, like the Clintons ruined my family's life. And it's not something I can vote for. And same with Joe in 2020. I'm like, this guy can't speak. They rallied behind him in 2020 when Bernie was going to run away with it. And listen, I have a lot of problems with Bernie now too. I think he had the kill shot that last debate when everyone in the whole world was getting locked down, and he could have gone in there and he could have said, Joe, I'm going to make sure everyone has health care, make sure everyone who stays home or loses their job is covered, has basic human needs, because we're going into a pandemic. And if you're sick with COVID, whether you have insurance or not, we're going to make sure everyone has access to health care. Joe, what are you going to do? And he wouldn't have anything. And then Bernie would be like, you vote for me and we're going to get through this. And he could have won, and he didn't do it.
What ended Bernie Sanders' campaign was, the lack of. I'm surprised he wasn't ready to deal with the amount of election fraud that happened in his campaign in 2016. There was. I assumed that he'd have a strong campaign to push back against the establishment, but no. And then also calling Joe Biden his good friend. That's a failure of politics right there. You don't call him your friend. He is your enemy. And you have to show that you are the stronger of the two.
Yes.
In the primary, you have to show that you are more coherent. You are more put together. And for some reason, I guess Bernie, still afraid of Trump, just like he did in 2016, lost his critical thinking skills and not realizing that, look, Biden, he won, but barely. And the thing is, Biden helped implement more laws to impact minority communities in this country than Trump did. Yes, Trump. Bigoted, racist, sexist, misogynist. Call him everyone. Call him all the things you want. But I do know one thing. He served in politics for 4 years. He served in politics for 4 years as president of the United States. He did not build the cages that are south of the border. That happened under Barack Obama and Biden's presidency. The kids in cages, that happened under their watch. Oh, let's talk about
and where's
the
media
bill.
on that? Where's the media on that right now? Because those cages are full.
Yeah, and then let's also talk about the crime bill, the 1993 crime bill that was signed under the Bill Clinton administration. Now, Bill Clinton, to his credit, and I say this sparingly, has apologized for that. Biden, he hasn't. Biden hasn't done that. Biden gave a eulogy to Strom Thurmond, who was a diehard, devoted segregationist. Biden was against busing and desegregation. Biden was also not pro women's reproductive rights. He wasn't for Roe v. Wade. In fact, he was on board. He was one of the many Democrats that was on board on getting rid of it earlier, before the internet ever came into existence. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I did a story on my Instagram after Roe v. Wade, and I inserted a tweet from Biden in 2019 saying that if he was elected president, he would codify Roe v. Wade. What happened, Joe? What happened? Like, it's just lies.
Well, Obama said the same thing too.
Oh, I know, but then it wasn't a priority. Okay.
Yeah, so like I like to do an impression of Obama, like, folks, we just couldn't make it happen. So vote harder, poor people. And that's the thing.
Well done.
And they're expecting us to vote harder, not ask questions. And with Trump, and I should have mentioned this earlier. Trump, he's all these bad things, right? But he didn't write these laws. These politicians who've been in power have done so. Him being the parasite, he just took advantage of it. But the thing about Trump, what I find interesting, especially with all these people that are afraid about Trump coming into office, and now people are getting ready to protest him and fight back. Where were you during these 4 years under Biden's administration? Where were you at when the fact that the Biden-Harris administration still continued on with a lot of Trump's foreign and domestic policies? And then finally, with Trump, without Trump corporate media would not be relevant. Without Trump, a lot of these activists, these front page people who are anti-Trump, who want to fight against him, you guys wouldn't have a job were it not for Trump. Yeah. None of you would be relevant were it not for Trump. See, Trump, he took off the mask off the neoliberal system of America. And he was probably the most transparent president we've ever seen because he wasn't tactful. He wasn't articulate enough to play up the lie. You have people like Bush Sr. Let me start from the beginning. You have people like Reagan, Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, right? They all put on that mask of, well, we're interfering in this country to protect freedom or protect this nation's sovereignty. Trump says, we're here for the oil.
I love when he said that.
We're here for the oil. And that was honesty. It wasn't about free, but that's how it's always been. So for people who had their blinders on, who vote Democrat or Republican, from Reagan to Obama and Biden, not including Trump, they all came out and said, we're here to protect our freedom. We're here to do this, X, Y, and Z. Now, it's all about resources, money, and dollars. Trump just said it how it is. And at least with Trump, I can respect his honesty because I know he won't fight for the issues I care about. But at least I know where I stand with him, and he's going to be transparent. And it's a horrifying transparent. But the thing is, he revealed the truth about how policy has been dictated over America for all these decades, while the American people have been complicit to it thanks to the political system and the corporate media that is now also controlling social media now too.
Yeah. And we're going to get into that 1 second because I do want to talk about that. One thing to sum up Trump, and it's all the Republicans, right? I was just talking to my friend about this 2 days ago, and I said, I'm like, I hate the Democrats more than the Republicans because I look at the Republicans and I'm like, I know what you're trying to do. Okay. I know that you've spent decades putting judges in courts and making sure that you can do these things like repeal Roe v. Wade legally. Like, I know what they're doing. I know that they say they're here to help poor people. Well, they do now kind of, but I know that they're here to say we're going to do X, Y, Z. And that, but they're not going to do it because they never do it. I know that they're going to invest more in the military and they're going to send more of our people over to the however many. I don't even know how many countries we're in anymore. Is it still 8? It's probably more. It's got to be more now. And then finally, with the Democrats, it's like they do it. They do it behind our back. The media doesn't cover it. The media is not covering the cages are overflowing. The media is not covering what we're doing overseas. Like, they're just not covering it. They're not covering the fact that Biden promised a $15 minimum wage. And that was the only thing Bernie got out of him in that hostage video that we saw when Bernie endorsed him. Like, it's just like, what is going on? And then Build Back Better, which was nothing. I mean, it was nothing at its peak. It was something, I should say. It was something at its vision. And then it was just stripped down to absolutely nothing. And what do we have to show for it? They just lie.
Well, what happened was Build Back Better was it started originally at $10 trillion, and at the bare minimum, it started at $7 trillion. I apologize for that. At the bare minimum, we need about $10 trillion to really, at the bare minimum, to rebuild and invest into our infrastructure. It started at $7 trillion. Now, of course, again, you have Senator Manchin, who was able to dictate policy and control. Yeah, with Vice President Sinema, who were able to again rip apart Build Back Better. Now, see, Build Back Better had also a lot of benefits to corporations too, but it was just a way to chop everything out. And of course, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, they didn't put up a fight. Bernie Sanders didn't put up a fight, and Build Back Better eventually became a whopping 0. So the thing is, it also shows the fact that this presidency is easily pushed around by senators in its own party or affiliated with his own party. And also this presidency is easily controlled by a non-elected official. Remember the Senate parliamentarian? I'm willing to bet millions of Americans never heard of that. The Senate parliamentarian is a glorified secretary, a non-elected official. They answer to the vice president and the president. So that means the president and the vice president have the power and ability to say, F you, Senate parliamentarian.
They're a consultant.
And the last Senate parliamentarian that dared push their weight around against the president, it was under George Bush Jr.'s administration. Yeah, that guy was fired. That guy was removed. So the thing is, somehow this Senate parliamentarian this non-elected official has a lot of power. I get that people are afraid of another Trump presidency, and I understand it. Look, I get it too. But I will not lose my I will not lose my critical thinking skills in realizing that if I participate with the Democrats, I have to remember that they helped build a system that gave rise to somebody like Trump. You think people voted for Trump because their lives are great? No, when you have somebody come in there with the promise, I will make your life better, and I am not with these people, Americans will flock to it, just like they flocked to Bernie's message too. But the difference between Trump and Bernie is that Trump had the follow through. When Trump holds rallies, even after he was defeated, he held a rally. He can get his army together. He can get his followers out there, not only to challenge the Republican Party, but also anyone else. At least he has the ability to get his people on point and organized. The Democrats, AOC and Bernie, they have millions upon millions of followers. They could do the exact same thing, but they don't use the power that is given to them. And when the fact they say, oh, we got to vote Democrat, why? Because it's the same Democratic Party that doesn't respect progressives. How can I respect progressives when they bend over backwards and then fail in everything that they promised in 2020? Show me something that they've done.
The thing that is, I can't even talk about AOC anymore. You know, when I talked to Sagar and Jetty about it, he said, I don't even like talking about her because she's not that interesting. She's just one of them. Yeah. I'm going to just say that. She's a celebrity now, and that's it. But when you look at what Bernie had, especially in 2016, but actually maybe especially in 2020, he had, this is the thing, the infrastructure of a third party, you got to get on the back. Bernie had over 1 million volunteers. He was raising more money from small donors. He was returning money from rich people. I remember there was a billionaire that donated to him. He returned the money. All he had to do was galvanize us and say, we're going to go get on the ballot. And we would have put him on the ballot. We would have had, and because the infrastructure for a political party was already there with the donor base, the volunteer base, and the passionate people and the workers, the people that make the things that the people like me consume and get food delivered on a daily basis. We're with him. We need to get more people like me with him. But if we could have got him on the ballot, I think in 2020 it could have been a totally different story.
Here's the thing. I like to think that is a possibility that could happen, and I want to see a third party become successful. And we've seen very rare moments where a third party could become a pivotal force. I want to bring up Ross Perot, for example, who, again, while he did that infamous vacuum cleaner sound, he was on point about what NAFTA was going to do. Yep. You had Ralph Nader, who was wrongly vilified in the 2000 election. Yep. And the thing is, to build a successful third, and then of course you got Theodore Roosevelt and the Bull Moose Party. And wait, how can I forget Abraham Lincoln? Because the Republicans were a third party at one point.
The Whigs, they overtook the Whigs.
Yeah, they overtook the Whigs. But the thing with the third party is, if you're going to plan it, it needs to start before a presidential election year. Yes. You need to start build, and he could have built that infrastructure in 2016. He could have done a lot of things to really make sure, because you have to count in state laws and federal laws that really prohibit and handicap independents, Greens, libertarians, socialists, and other political parties. And in a democracy like the United States, you'd think we'd have multiple choices. Other democracies have multi-party system, parliamentary systems.
All of them do.
And they also have a thing called, again, majority vote. They don't have the antiquated electoral college. We do. The electoral college supersedes the popular vote. I don't care what people say about, popular vote. Now in America, it doesn't matter here. We are the rare exception of popular vote here in comparison to other democracies, because the electoral college will always supersede the popular vote. And if the Democrats really cared about that, they would have also been instrumental in trying to get rid of the electoral college.
But that's because they can't get rid of that, because first they'd have to clean up their own act in their own party, because they've got the super delegates. Honestly, we vote for delegates that don't even have to go with our vote. And they've threatened it before when it looked like Bernie could win.
Yeah, the super delegates.
Yeah, it's crazy.
A controversial statement in 3, 2, 1. In the Republican 2016 primary, Donald Trump was more democratically elected to be the representative of his political party than Hillary Clinton was, because she had a thing called superdelegates. The Republicans don't have superdelegates.
No.
They don't.
And honestly, if they did, they would have stopped him.
Oh yeah,
and we would have had Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz
or Jeb Bush. You know what? A part of me now, a part of me is kind of looking forward to seeing Trump run office again, because I want to see if there's going to be a primary again. I want to see if he's going to start making fun of his opponents again, like he did in 2016.
Oh my God! Lion Ted, Little Marco,
Little Marco,
Crooked Hillary in the primary or in the general.
Low energy Jeb.
Yeah. He was savage during those debates. Savage.
I mean, I kind of felt sorry for Jeb because he looked like that nerd trying to act tough, right? And he actually said, I think he
unsuccessfully stand up to his bully.
I think he said to Trump, "Well, I eat bullets for breakfast," and I'm like, "No, you don't. No, you don't." I mean, and nothing against his family, but I think his mom even joined him on the campaign trail. It's sort of like, "Show me, son, who's making fun of you. I'll give him a piece of my mind." Get out of here! Come on. And then, of course, you had Ted Cruz, and Trump demolished him. Then
he
Rubio
took his dignity, and then he called his wife. Didn't he call his wife ugly? Like just dirty bottom. Insinuated that his dad was the Zodiac killer. Like bottom feeding insults. And Ted Cruz had nothing. He couldn't even say, "I'm not going to get in the mud with Donald Trump," and he would have at least salvaged some dignity. Couldn't even do that.
It is rather hilarious to see these careerist politicians from dynastic families getting owned. But I wonder if Trump's going to do that repeat again, because the Republican establishment, I would be surprised if they don't have a primary, because this will be a test also for Trump. And the thing is, whether you like it or not, the 2024 election cycle was my job for Hard Lens Media, as will be your thing. You'll be looking into it too. All of the media, independent. We're going to have to follow this election and see what exactly each of the two parties will do. I'm also curious to see what third parties will do. I'm curious to see if the Greens and Libertarians can get their act together, or independent parties can get their act together. I want to see what is going to be done for 2024, because there's no excuse of what is happening right outside our windows. We're seeing Americans being evicted from their homes and apartments due to policy decisions of Democratic and Republican presidential administrations. We're seeing small businesses being shut down. We're seeing our infrastructure fall apart. So
medical debt continues to explode. Insurance for those who have it gets more and more expensive.
The leading cause of homelessness in America isn't because somebody's addicted to drugs or just a lazy person. It's because of medical bankruptcy. That is a foreign concept to my international audience that watches Heart Lens. I occasionally sometimes get messages from people saying, "Hey, look, I'm from Germany, or I'm from Britain, or I'm from Canada, and I've never heard of medical bankruptcy." Well, what is it?
I know.
And you tell them what it is like, that is barbaric. Richest country in the world, we can't provide health care for our people.
Yep. my last company that I worked at was a Swedish company. So I would go over to Stockholm regularly, a number of times a year. And we would have people come over here, and there was a girl, I've talked about her before actually, who came here, and she came here for a year. It was about a year, and was appalled at the cost of going to the doctor for a cough.
Yeah.
She said I think it was first 7, you pay a $10 copay, and then that's it for the year. That's it. And she was appalled at how much came out of her check every week. And then she had a copay, and then she still had a bill after, because she had a chest x-ray. And then she had a deductible to hit. It's like, what are we doing? And I got to tell you, the homeless thing that's a very personal issue to me. Growing up, looking back now, I know there were times we were almost homeless. At the time, we only lived here a few months and had to move again, evicted. Yeah. And, that's really personal to me. And when I see homeless people in tent cities popping up in my neighborhood, my park across the street, it's
all
heartbreaking. Over. Yeah. And they're young. It's a young couple.
Yeah.
It's a young couple. What they have their whole life ahead of them, and they're living in a tent in a park.
What's happening now in America is you have corporations and billionaires buying up homes and real estate, farmland, and the idea of owning a home or having generational wealth. A home ownership, at least one point in America, was a way to maintain and build generational wealth. That is being taken away from us. What the American people are being reduced to now is silent obedient serfs. You will own nothing and be happy. Now, for a long time, people said, well, that's a conspiracy. Well, look outside your window.
What's happening?
The ability to own a home or a car or even a small business is becoming just that, a dream. And it's the fault of these neoliberal politicians in the Democratic and Republican Party who implemented policies that chopped off the legs of the working class people in this country. These politicians don't care. They want money. You know, in Pilsen alone, a neighborhood here in Chicago, 10,000 people have been displaced due to gentrification. Same thing in South Austin.
And that's just in the last few years in Pilsen, too.
Yeah,
it's just the last few years in Pilsen.
I you know what? I just want to bring up this short story. Because I'm kind of going all over the place. Apologize, but I have to bring this up here. 2017, Daniel and I started Hard Lens, and we did a lot of field reporting. And there was this one place that we were about to do a live stream recording. It was with Tom Tresher, who wrote this fantastic book. It's called Chicago's Not Broke. If you want to learn about the TIF funds, this is a book I recommend. It's called Chicago's Not Broke, written by Tom Tresher. Chicago's Not Broke. If you want to know why Chicago's not broke, read it. So before Daniel arrived, I got there early, and I saw this article from the Red Eye, because this was like right after we covered a story from Pilsen, right? And it said, "See Pilsen before it's gone." Now, me being the wide-eye idealistic fool, I'm thinking, oh my God, this Red Eye article is going to talk about Pilsen being destroyed, because what happened to Casa Aslan, right? And I'll get to that. What's important about that? I hope I said its name correct. So I go ahead. I say, wow, see Pilsen before it's gone. So I'm ripping through the paper, getting to this article. See Pilsen in the summer before it's gone. And it's all these fancy bars and restaurants. And nothing against them. They all look great. Mm-hmm. But it was contributing to the gentrification that was happening in Pilsen. Now, what's Casa Aslan? It was a building that was specifically designed to help migrants who are coming here from America, from Central and South America, to get back on their feet. From Mexico, Central and South America, to get back on their feet, or to help them get on their feet as they transition to living in America. It was a building that was for and helping out the community, but it got bought out, and it was being turned into an expensive little housing area. So if you couldn't make a six-figure salary, and if you couldn't do it, and I remember this was like almost a scene from Black Mirror, right? As I'm getting ready to set up to do a live stream to cover the people, the activists that are speaking there, this tour bus comes on by, and it's almost like we were animals in like a safari park, and there's all the tourists taking pictures of the area, and they're just passing by, just taking pictures as this once famous cultural landmark here in Chicago is being turned into something to help out some rich person. And look, I get that
to attract white collar workers to come to work at our software companies.
And look, I get the idea of, let's renovate things. But see, the thing is, that's where they lose me with the renovation, because what's happening is gentrification is gutting communities that have been living here for generations. I mentioned earlier in this interview, right, this conversation, my family's been living here since the 1900s. In my neighborhood specifically, 1948. Wow. There's been families that have been living here longer than mine. And people who've been living here for so many years, families, so many years, are just being kicked out of what really makes Chicago great. The beating heart of Chicago isn't the buildings or the sports teams or the landmarks. It's the people. It's the people that make shit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's who we are, and we're losing that. Yeah, we're losing that thanks to these corporations coming in that also own our politicians and control our media and control big tech.
And let's talk really quickly. And you're right. I agree completely. Let's talk quickly about media. So you've had Hard Lens now. You're on about 5 years.
Yeah.
And you do great work. Full transparency, I don't watch you every day. There's so many things to watch and listen to, but I watch you. I've been a fan for a few years. I actually found you through one of your interviews a few years ago with Jimmy Dore, and started following you and listening then. You got me through a lot of COVID because it couldn't leave my house. And so thank you for that. But
yeah,
I'm curious. So you guys, you have great content. You do on the field reporting, you do commentary, you cover a lot of things. What is your vision with Hard Lens? And then how do you get it out to the world? Because, whether you want to call it censorship or not, like there's algorithms, shadow banning, things you can and can't say. So what's your vision for your network? And then, how do you plan to get it out there to more people?
Well, there's a lot of things to factor in that question, and I do apologize because I might be going on a little bit longer. But this is an answer that requires that's a question that requires a detailed answer, and especially of what our goal was before the 2020 lockdowns. So my overall, keeping it simple, my overall goal, vision for Hard Lens Media is to make us a self-sufficient, independent news network covering stories, doing investigative work in Chicago, outside of Chicago, giving a voice to the voiceless, giving a platform to people who are trying to make change, and also giving commentary to current events. We want Hard Lens Media to be the show here in Chicago that if you are involved in politics, if you are a person of influence, if you are a person that's trying to bring in change to your community, you come to Chicago or either that you want to come onto our show so that your voice can be amplified. Because for a long time, I've dealt with censorship. So here's the thing, getting our message out. From 2019 was a very high year. But as soon as the Biden-Harris administration got into office and as soon as COVID became a thing, we got gut-checked by censorship. We got gut-checked by the YouTube algorithm. So here's the problem. We talked about people like Julian Assange, Edward Snowden. We talked about, again, there was a time you couldn't even talk about the pandemic. And for 6 months, Hard Lens Media was effectively shadow banned and demonetized and dead. We had to create a backup channel just to get us active again.
Jeez, I didn't even know that.
We not only that, we got a permanent warning. Now, this warning, now with YouTube, you could always challenge a strike or a warning or anything like that. But what YouTube did was we got struck with a video for talking about the January 6th riots. Now, we never once in that video did we say that Biden was not president, but YouTube, being the blind, deaf attack dog that it is, bit us, and when our live stream video got taken down, got struck, and then another video got deleted. Now, I remember talking to Daniel and FaZe, who's our editor. Again, both of them doing fantastic work. Daniel, who's the CEO of 99 Perspectives, doing great work. We are all looking at each other like, did you delete the video? Did you delete the video? Because we got to get rid of this warning. YouTube deleted that video. So we can no longer, at any point, get rid of our warning. So it's permanently kind of stuck with us. Now we're fully monetized. We're A-okay. We're able to get our live stream out there, but we've been hit with violating the YouTube air quote because we were talking about controversial subjects not once but 7 times. The most hilarious ones,
unbelievable,
were when Kira, our outstanding reporter, again, she does great work for Chicago Corner, which is our other channel that's dedicated only to Chicago politics. It's called Chicago Corner. She was doing a story on a situation with Pornhub where, there was obviously some controversial videos that were up there. And for some reason, YouTube was thinking, oh, you were showing adult material in this video, when all she was doing was reading an article
covering a story
from the Huffington Post, Washington Post, and the New York Times. She was reading it. We got another strike when we were talking about how CNN was smearing Joe Rogan. We've got a few strikes when we were talking about Julian Assange or the pandemic, and then of course the January 6th thing. And it was it's very difficult because we were at a point to where in 2020 we could have, because we were doing so well, we could have hired a field reporting team to do some basic coverage in Chicago and outside of Chicago. when we got that gut check, that we're still recovering from it. It's like a gut check to where you're still like holding your stomach and thinking, oh, can I breathe? Can I get up? And the answer is kind of maybe. Because of how crazy the YouTube environment is. Because when you have people who are pro-censorship or easily offended or say cancel this person, cancel that person, what you're doing is you're putting everyone on the chopping block. And I get that there are bad people out there, people like Trump, people like AJ. I think we all know who I'm talking about. I don't think I could say his name, but again, where, you have these bad people, but if you call for the immediate censorship, what you do then is also you're inviting for independents and progressives, libertarians, activists to be silenced too. And then there's certain words that you can and cannot say. Now, we're able to go live on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. But also we have a TV show where we upload our interviews on CAN TV. And for people who may be watching this outside of Chicago, CAN TV is Chicago Access Network Television, which is like a public access television network. So we have a TV show.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Oh, hey, you know what? After this, I'll talk to you more about CAN TV. I could give you like a little bit of a hookup there. So there you go.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Wait, quick question. Do you live in Chicago?
I do. I'm in Wicker Park.
Oh, right. Duh.
Yeah. Chicago. Yeah, I love Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, well then,
part of the reason
the
this stuff's so frustrating to me is because I love this city, and this is I truly believe this is the best city I've ever been to for sure. But in this country, this is the best city. But we're gonna lose it. We're gonna lose it. Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, all you have to have is like maybe your ID and mailing and a piece of mail that shows that you live in Chicago, and you could get onto CAN TV. So, anyways, the point is what I was saying is we diversify where we're at. We're also trying to get onto radio too, because at least not only do we not have to worry about God forbid, we are censored off of YouTube. We have Rockfin, Odyssey, Rumble, and Twitch as well as alternative platforms to be on. We have a backup channel too. We're on CAN TV, and the whole goal is to stay one step ahead of the censorship. Now, we recently did a field report a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, in Indiana, covering the toxic tour and how Lake Michigan's being polluted. I want to do more stuff like that. I want to do more stuff like that. So to answer your question is, to be relevant, to be a step ahead of the censorship, you got to diversify your accounts. So we're always on Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, on Rockfin, on Odyssey. So Rockfin spelled Rokfin, Odyssey Odyssee. Then there's Rumble. Then there's Twitch.
And we'll put all those links in the show description too.
Yeah, and that's where you could find us. Because again, I wish this wasn't the case. I wish YouTube would go back to being a meritocracy. I wish there weren't people who were promoting censorship, especially those on the left. But this is the environment that we are in, and it's kind of frightening to where we're at as a country and as a nation, to where what we want to do as a livelihood. Now, 1984, there you go, right there. Sorry, I got a screen right here and a screen right here. So my
no, you're good. Here's another one people should check out.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, you're right. It's horrible to see that this is going on, and the cheering of censorship. Like, I get it, but we have laws against hate speech. We have courts for slander, for libel, for defamation. All of these things, we should be enforcing those while protecting the right of people to speak and share their ideas. And when you take something like Julian Assange, who I am so sick of having this conversation about Julian Assange. The guy is, if you want to try him for other things, try him for other things. But he is under investigation for the Espionage Act. And the guy hasn't committed a crime in that space. He has released information that the public had a right to know.
Yep.
That's it.
If I can add a little bit more onto this. So let's talk about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. All right, so for those people who are still triggered by Julian Assange or assume that he somehow helped Trump, the answer is no. Because, again, Julian Assange went after both Democrats and Republicans. He is nobody's friend in the two-party system. And the thing is, WikiLeaks, they never once had to retract the story.
Never. Not
a
once.
Clear record. So for those people saying WikiLeaks can't be trusted, well, okay, have they ever had to retract the story? Were they ever proven wrong? Show me and articulate to me where they got something wrong. No, seriously, articulate. I'm going to take words from Brianna Joy Gray. Articulate to me where they got a story wrong. Julian Assange is a publisher and a journalist. He's not a hacker. He's protecting his sources. Now, Julian Assange is a father of two. He's a husband. He's a son. He's a brother. He's a friend. He's a colleague. And there are people who are demanding for his immediate release. He is wrongly imprisoned. Again, he is a Australian citizen who sought, again, sanctuary in a Ecuadorian embassy in Great Britain, and yet he is in a British jail, and the United States government is requiring him to be extradited. None of that makes sense. And again, you could thank people like Obama.
And there's a lot of laws broken in the process of that happening too.
And you could thank people, and you could thank people like Obama who forced Julian Assange to be in the situation where he's at. And of course, you have the idiot Trump, who was so easily swayed by people of the Bush-Cheney administration to help him make the decision to get Julian Assange to get arrested. And so now Julian Assange is behind bars. And remember, in 2020, the previous judge made the decision of not having Julian Assange extradited because the judge said, and these were her words, she was concerned for Julian Assange's safety because the U.S. prison record isn't all that great and our system isn't all that protective. And there was either risk of him either getting attacked by said prisoners or him taking his life or something else mysteriously happening to him. Sort of like a guy named Epstein.
Taking his life, we'll throw in air quotes for those who can't see it.
Yeah, there you go. Somehow taking it, right? And by the way, the Belmarsh prison, it's a max security prison, right? And yes, there are some bad guys there in that prison, of course, right? Because it's a prison, right? But when Julian Assange was in solitary confinement, and this is before the 2020 pandemic, there were some prisoners who went on a hunger strike to make sure that Julian Assange got out of that solitary confinement. These are hardened criminals in a maximum security prison. The quote-unquote, at least what society says, the bad guys. When those guys decide to take that initiative to help somebody that is not in their league, that is in jail for it, people should take a step back and wonder, wait, what's going on? When you also have people like Sarah Palin, who also, again, WikiLeaks did a story on, calling for Trump to pardon him. You have so many people of different political affiliations calling for Julian Assange to be released. It should tell you that if you are rooting for him, you are on the wrong side of history. And if he is extradited, again, the Espionage Act, which is an antiquated law from World War I, this law, again, has no bearing because, again, Julian Assange is not an American citizen. If he gets extradited here, we'll say goodbye to free speech. I don't care if you're libertarian, green, socialist, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, whether you're who you worship, the color of your skin, what generation you're part of. As soon as he's extradited, as soon as he is sentenced, anything that you watch on social media is now open to be censored, said people to maybe be arrested. It's opening up the Pandora's box for the worst case scenario. You held up the book 1984. I also can't help but bring up the book Fahrenheit 451.
Mm-hmm.
This is the world we're walking into.
Book from high school.
So if you're applauding censorship, if you're applauding Julian Assange being extradited, if you're happy that Edward Snowden, who, again, revealed to all of us that Bob and John from the FBI are spying in on you from the NSA, or who are looking in on you right here, well, you're going to walk into a world where you're not going to be able to say anything at all. Even corporate media is going to have to be careful what it can say.
Well, they already are.
That's the environment. Yeah. So there you go.
And so corporate media is already bought and paid for over and over and over. But look at us, Kit. You self-censored yourself. You asked me if you could say Julian Assange's name on this before we even aired. And the reality is they've painted this as as everything in this country does, as a dividing issue between Republicans and Democrats. Censorship is the universal issue. If you don't want to become like communist China, then you and me and everyone across lines need to stand up for freedom of the press, stand up for freedom of speech. And then we need to counter bad ideas with better ideas. And we need to do what happened to AJ, sue him when he slanders and tells lies, and doxes people and beat him in a court of law to shut him up. That's what you have to do. And we have the laws in place. We have these platforms that are censoring us. We have people self-censoring. We're on a dangerous path. And the moment a journalist goes to jail for what they have published is the moment that it can be done to you, can be done to me, it can be done to anyone that dissents against the narrative.
I'll talk a little bit more about censorship. So here's the thing. Unfortunately, if you are going to, especially first of all, if you want to do like what you're doing, Nick, or what we're doing here for Hard Lens Media, the environment now is extremely hostile towards what you could say the YouTube algorithm is designed in a way to go after titles, thumbnails, or even words that you say. And that's why we also have a show on Rockfin, which, so in case we're going to be covering a major story that we know is going to get flagged because YouTube isn't changing its policies, we put it on Rockfin. We end a YouTube live stream, we put it on Rockfin because at least Rockfin and Odyssey and Rumble respect free-thinking media and journalists and freedom of speech. If you're going to do something like this, be prepared to adapt. You have to build an infrastructure. You have to build a system in which you know that in case YouTube does put its jackboot on your throat, you're able to at least have other platforms to back up on. When we started Hard Lens Media in 2017, just before all this other crazy stuff happened, before the algorithm, before the censorship got out of control, even we were confronted by people because we did radio show. We had 2 radio shows. We weren't on frequently. It was only on the weekends. I had people confront me and say, well, you shouldn't have libertarians on your show. You shouldn't be interviewing the Green Party on your show. Don't be talking to socialists on your show. Don't talk to this activist groups. Talk to me or talk to this. And what's interesting to point out, this person who brought this up to me, when we interviewed them, and I'm going to keep them anonymous here, when we interviewed them, what's funny is that we've had people come up to us and say, oh, you shouldn't interview that person. I hate censorship, and I hate being told who I can and cannot have on my show. And so I will do everything I can to at least maintain what we're building and what I want to see. What I want to see is YouTube change from what it is now. I want there to be an area of exchange of ideas so that we are free, so that, again, talking about Julian Assange, talking about Edward Snowden, and other journalists, too, are free. And, I need to bring up this person, too, Stephen Donziger. He was wrongly under house arrest for 2 years. 2 years for holding Chevron accountable for a toxic spill that it did in Ecuador. I think so. I think it was Ecuador. It was in Central America. I apologize.
It was in Central America, yeah. I don't remember where.
I apologize, audience. I apologize. But it was in Central America. And the thing is, Chevron, a private corporation, was able to get the United States judicial system to imprison a lawyer fighting for the indigenous communities there under house arrest for two and a half years, going on to 3 years. Was abandoned. But to point out, Stephen Donziger did win his case. It's just Chevron managed to find a way to weasel its way out to not paying the indigenous people that were polluted. Chevron.
And it was Ecuador. I just checked.
Okay, cool. So I got it right the first time. Awesome. And the thing is, Chevron, the same large fossil fuel corporation like the others that donate to the Democratic and Republican Party.
Yep. And that's the core thing. That's the core thing. Everybody's bought and paid for by the same rich assholes and the same corporations. So, well, that was fun. Do you have anything else you want to ask me?
Well, sure. Nick, here's the thing. Obviously, I'm a fan of Jimmy Dore. He's a Chicagoan. And what I say on my show on Chicago Corner 2 is if you're from Chicago, well, then I got a bias. I'm going to respect Chicagoans because Chicagoans got to look after Chicagoans. So when we talked, I just heard about you recently. I shared with my colleagues that I was going to be on your show, that this was going to be a recording. So you did mention you're on a reality TV show. So who is Nick? Who is Nick? Who is Nick Thompson? And what are you about?
Yeah, good question. So I was on the reality show Love is Blind, which was filmed here in Chicago last year, primarily in Chicago. So I did that, and I gained a platform from getting married on the show. And well, now I'm going to be getting divorced from the show, but
okay. All right.
What I like to say is that was, it's hilarious to me in a sense, because growing up, I wanted to be a filmmaker, or I wanted to be a reporter, or I wanted to be a writer, always kind of behind the camera. And the interesting thing is I got famous for being in front of the camera and my relationship. But there was a line that I said in the show where I was saying, I was just talking to her about capitalism, because that one line piqued a lot of interest of people. In fact, I just got a DM this morning, someone asking me, what were you talking about capitalism? Politics, both local in Chicago, global, it's my hobby. I love to listen to shows like Hard Lens. I love to listen to Jimmy. I listen to Breaking Points every day. I am an activist. I am frustrated. I am a recovering Democrat, and I want to use my platform to talk about the things that are me. So that's part of me, right? That's how I got this platform, but I'm very, very active. I volunteer. I protest. I will literally probably protest for something I don't even necessarily believe in, because I just think we need more of it. And I think that, that's how we're going to end up. Well, I don't know if we're going to end up getting changed, but I think it's an important part of our democracy. And then, I care about self-care. I've come from a tough background of, a tough childhood. I've done a lot of work on myself, so I like to talk about those things as well. And I'm a big Chicago guy. I love this city. I love, just wandering around it, finding new things to do, finding local restaurants, supporting the small businesses in the area, because I love the city. I love the people. And I think, we got to look after each other, and we got to look after our city. So I would say, in a nutshell, I'm a little bit of a closet hippie and politically active, trying to use this new platform to talk about things that have stigmas around them. So censorship, the media, politics, mental health, wellness, all of that stuff. So we can hopefully use this platform to stop having divides and realize that on the inside, we're all human beings. And if we all come from there and we realize, hey, I want everyone to have health care. You want everyone to have, no one wants anyone to get sick and die. So why don't we start there and say, okay, now let's talk about how we get there. Because guess what? It's our job to say as people what we want. It's the politician's job to figure out how to give it to us. And I feel that if we can come together on these basic ideas, we can really be like, hey, we're together on these things, do it now, or we're shutting it down. That's my hope.
I really liked it. I did not know that about you, but I will definitely check that out. So you're talking about capitalism. So what exactly really made you question it? Because here's the thing. I know that from my perspective, looking at this economic system we're in, I wouldn't define it as capitalism anymore. It's basically it's vulture capitalism that we're in, and we're dealing with corporations that are dictating over us now. That's the real thing. What caused you to really call into question? Because for me, it was just seeing the constant neighborhoods here in Chicago always being ignored. Again, there's lead in our drinking water. Flint, Michigan doesn't have clean drinking water. We don't have clean drinking water, and so much more. What really caused that for you to call into question?
I posted a story about the lead in the drinking water a few weeks ago. I tagged Lori Lightfoot. She never responded.
She won't. I actually interviewed her before she ran for office, or not before she ran, during the third mayoral debate. I actually did an interview with said candidate, Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
She's there's actually a bunch of, I get so much support from Chicagoans. They want me to run against her.
This election year, I fear it's going to be like 2019. It's going to be a clown car.
Yeah,
and
there's
and now there's even talk of Chewy that's going to run.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, this will be interesting.
So anyways, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. So capitalism. 2008, I lost my job, as so many people did. Obama spoke to me. This was really the first time I felt like I had an idea of what I wanted from a politician. And so I volunteered voted for him. Nothing happened. I remember like I got really into it. I would like listen to congressional hearings and stuff because I had a job where I had to commute a lot when I finally got a new job. I would just listen to them debate Obamacare, and I was like, sounds like this is going the opposite direction of what I thought it was going to be. And then again, 2012, I voted reluctantly and kind of gave up on politics. 2015, I was like, is it really going to be Trump and Hillary? Like something's not working. Something is wrong. This is not what the country needs. And, I learned about Bernie through TYT. And my friend was like, you should check out Bernie. I didn't think he had any chance to win. So I started like literally listening to TYT because it just spoke to me. Jimmy spoke to me. I remember the first time I met him here in, I think it was 2016. He did a show out in Rosemont at Zany's. And
okay.
Yeah, I was like the first in line to meet him. And I like to tell myself that I'm the first person to said this to him, but I'm probably not. I said to him, I'm like, Jimmy, like, thank you because you made me feel sane when I felt like I was sane. Yeah.
I said it to him too. I've interviewed him a few times. I've interviewed him a few times on the show. Really good friend. He helped us out, especially when we first got a strike by YouTube. I have to say, Jimmy Dore will go to bat for you. If he knows you're solid, he'll go to bat for you.
I struggle because I know he's a good guy and this is just because I've met him a handful of times at his shows. Like I don't know him. Like I fanboy when I meet him. And the thing about him is he's so passionate and he's right about most things that he talks about. It's almost like the people he's talking to are the left, like the real left, right? Mm-hmm. But he talks in layman's terms, which people I feel like associate that with like how Trump speaks. And I think that people get turned off by him, but they don't know that he's actually like really coming from a good place. I mean, the guy he's so passionate about what he does. He takes the hits, he takes the strikes. Everyone turned on him after Force the Vote, which was I had Force the Vote signs on all my windows here. I had people ask me, what's Force the Vote? Because that's the first thing that made sense to me from the left in a long time, because, it just felt like nothing was happening when we sent the progressives to Congress. And of course it wasn't. And so this is all kind of my journey, but like capitalism isn't working. If there's homeless people growing, I don't even know what we're at now, but it's 600,000, I think, or something like that in this country. It's not working. And so until we give people basic human rights, and I've seen it in Sweden, I've seen it in Denmark, it's possible. I've seen it in England. It's possible to give people basic human rights. And for me, like, that's what I want to fight for. Everyone should have a home. Everyone should have food. Everyone should have health care. Everyone should have either a job or a way to monetize the work that they do. And I think that, that's what I'm fighting for personally. And I think that, that's been my journey, is like just so many times I'm realizing voting doesn't work. Getting in the streets after George Floyd, didn't work. But again, when we protest, we have to protest for something, not against something. So I think like we need to get better, and we need organizers. We need guys like Christian Smalls out there with organizing unions. We need, actual organization. It can't be defund the police. It needs to be, here's the reforms we're demanding. Right. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm trying to figure out, I guess, what my role is. And I've landed a little bit on using the platform to spread knowledge. A lot of people, they don't have time. They don't have energy to listen to the news every day. They'll throw on, their local news or whatever and get these sound bites. But, as more and more people listen to podcasts and listen to long form content and really try to understand issues, I'm hoping to be a part of that so we can start to change the way people think about our country and the world.
Right on, man. I have to say, this has been a real pleasure to be on your show, and I wasn't aware of this. So, how about this? To be continued. Perhaps we can work on collaboration or some future projects here in the city. I mean, 2023 is going to be the municipal election year here in Chicago, where we could potentially have a new mayor. Hopefully get some more aldermen that do care. Right now, if you don't live in Chicago, you're watching this show. For those of you who don't know, a lot of aldermen have conveniently abandoned their posts or have retired, probably because they're being investigated for being, jagoff, corrupt people. But that's what's happening right now. But maybe to be continued, we could do some collaboration. Maybe give us an analysis about what's happening here in the city and further other elections that take place here in Chicago. I would like to do that.
Yeah, I would love to do that too. I'd love to work with you on anything we can. And just to maybe end it on a funny note, most people don't know this. You probably do, but Chicago, it's a very windy day today. We got gusts of like 50, 60 miles an hour coming in.
Yes.
We are not called the Windy City because of the wind. We're called the Windy City because in the late 1800s, we were dubbed that because all of our politicians were just blowing wind. And I don't think that's changed so much over the last 100+ years.
Hold on. Leave them also with a good wiki fact too, right? Chicago's 4 stars. Do you know what they represent?
I don't.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Okay, so we have Fort Dearborn. We have the Century of Progress. We have the World's Fair. And now I'm forgetting the other one. Yes, that's the thing. Hold on. Oh my God, Chicago flag, 4 stars. I used to know it verbatim. Hold on, what it means. Okay, the first star is Fort Dearborn. The second represents the Great Chicago Fire. Duh. And the third and fourth one are the 2 World's Fairs that took place here in Chicago. So there you go. So it's Fort Dearborn, Chicago Fire, Columbian Exposition, Century of Progress. There you go.
Love it.
There you go.
Love
and plus
this city.
Yeah, there you go. And the 2 blue lines are the rivers. So there you go.
That I think I did know. That's cool. So Kit, where can people find you and Hard Lens?
Well, you could find us every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. We have a website. Again, our shows are all called Hard Lens Media, HARDLENS MEDIA, because some people say Heartland. No, it's Hard Lens. Hard like a rock, lens like a camera, media. So Hard Lens Media, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble, and Twitch. We're also on Twitter and on Instagram as well. We do have a show on Can TV, Channel 21, but occasionally, we're in different time spots. But yes, we have a show on Can TV as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on. Thanks for spending so much time. Awesome conversation, and hope you all enjoyed.
Take care.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of Conversations with Nick Thompson. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow us and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Links can be found in the description below, and we can't wait to see you next time.